Shalom. I am Rabbi Nathan Davidovich speaking to you on behalf of the webyeshiva.org, speaking to you from Efrat, Israel. This week's Torah portion is Chayei Sarah, and we learn many lessons from this Torah portion, as we do from every part of the Torah. First of all, the way the Torah begins, it begins with the words, Vayiyu Chayei Sarah. This was the life of Sarah. Then it goes on to indicate the number of years. And then it says, in the very next sentence, Vatama Sarah, and she died. From that positioning of what the Torah is saying, this is the life of, and then she died, we learn one very important lesson. And it teaches us that what is really important in life is how we live life. The world is created that we all have to die at some point. And death is not the important thing. The important thing is how we live our lives. So that's a very important message that overrides and is found throughout the Torah, and is a message for all of us. Later in the Torah, it says, in the same Parsha, talks about Avraham Avinu, about Abraham, and it says, Avram Zaken Ba Bayamim. Very strange language. It wants to tell how old Abraham is, and it says, he was old and he came into days. He was advanced in days. And the fact that it's referring to his age by days instead of years seems strange. Why not mention years? And Rabbi Elimelech Biederman brings a commentary that says the word yomim can mean clarity. And what it means is that it can be translated as Avram Zaken Ba Bayamim. As Avram was growing old, he was gaining clarity. The clarity was that he saw that everything that happened to him was a blessing from God. And he understood that even though when things seem bad, that ultimately there are God's blessings and were ultimately for his goods. And going back to the beginning of the Parsha, where it says, Vayakam Avram al Panei Meso, it says Avram got up from before his dead, before the body of Sarah. And he brings the commentary, it says, Meso, death, refers to challenges and difficult times. And Vayakam Abraham el Panei Meso means that every difficult time resulted in Avraham Vayakam rising to higher levels. And the same pasuk, as he's trying to buy the land for a burial place, he's trying to buy Marat Machpelah, the land in Hebron, Kiryat Arba, that he bought from the children of Chet. He says, the pasuk says, Vayakum Avram al Panei Meso, he got up from before his dead, before his wife, Sarah, Vayidaber el Bnei Ches, Lamor. And he spoke to the children of Ches, saying, and later on in the Torah, towards the end of the Torah, the word Chet comes from the word al Techas. It says, don't be afraid. But it's also interpreted as people who go through difficult times, and it's interpreted as by Onkelos as being somebody who's broken. So it says, don't break. So this is saying when it says Vaydaber el Bnei Ches, Avram was speaking, and encouraging, he wasn't speaking to them, he was speaking to all of us who go through difficult times, who feel that we're broken, and telling us that everything is for the good and encouraging us. And he spoke soft words to people who had gone through hard times. And this fits in with exactly what Rashi says about Sarah. He says that all of her life, the entirety of her life was all good. They were all equal in goodness, which is really difficult to understand, because if you look at the Torah, the story about Sarah, she had all kinds of problems in her life. First, she was taken captive by Paro. She was kidnapped. Then she couldn't have children, and then finally she had a child, Yitzchak, and Yitzchak was brought up for an offering. He wasn't offered, but he was brought up. She had she gave Avram a concubine so he could have a child in their family, and that child turned out to have to be kicked out of the house because of his actions. She had all kinds of problems. So how could you say, how does the Torah say, how does Rashi say all her years were good? And the answer is that she knew that although they were good, she knew that there were some good years, really even the years that seemed bad were good. She understood, as the Torah tells us, called the Ovid Rahmana Latab Ovid. The Gemara says that. All that Hashem does for us is for good. So when Rashi says this, that Kulam Shavim Latova, they were all for good, the Rabbi Yankala of Peshavorsky, the Tzal says that the first letters of those three words, Kulam Shavim Latova, the Hebrew letters of Kuf, Shin, and Lamed, spell Seichel, intelligence, to teach us that when one thinks with intelligence, you can find good even in the hardest times. And they tell a story about the Chofetz Chaim. During the First World War, he was talking to his students. Everybody was afraid and worried about their future. They thought there was no hope, no future in them. And the Chofetz Chaim told the story. He says, Adam, the first man, cried on the first night because it became dark, and he thought the world was going to end. But he didn't cry on the second night. By the second night, he understood that this was the pattern of the world. There was darkness and light light again. And the Chofetz Chaim said, in the history of the Jewish people, so many times it looked like the sun had set for our people. But God saved us each time, and we've seen the light again. So why are you worried? The darkness we are going through now will be followed by light. And that's a very important concept, to recognize that everything that happens, even though we don't see it, is ultimately for our good. One other quick point I want to make is part of this parsha is Avram sending his servant Eliezer to find a wife. And when he meets Rebecca, he goes with her to the house, and he's told they offer to give him water to wash the feet of his slaves. This is the second time we've had a reference to washing feet, to get the dust off the feet. In last week's parsha, when Avram saw three people coming, he thought they were Arabs who worshipped the dust, and he thought that was idol worship. What kind of idol worship is worshiping the dust? He says, no, not that one worships the dust of your feet, but rather you say, oh, my feet are what caused me to get this great success. I was able to do this on myself. It's forgetting that God is in charge of everything, and thinking that you yourself can do it. And therefore the dust of the feet, the avodah zarah, had to be washed off. All of these concepts are in there. There's so much more, but there's no time to talk about them. So I wish everybody to look at their problems and realize that following the darkness, there is always light. Everything that God does is for the good. Let's use our intelligence to understand that. Life will be much easier. Thank you for listening. On behalf of the webyeshiva.org, I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom.